Thanks so much for tuning into the trade setup. I'm Neeraj Shah, and after 2 straight days of a correction, could there be more in store? Let's wait and watch. Oil has come off, which is a good sign, but the rhetoric around uh, recessionary winds isn't out of the way. If anything, it's going louder. World Bank, for example, has said that the global recession looms amidst the broadest rate hikes in 5 decades. And the FedEx CEO says that he expects the economy to enter a worldwide recession. Now, the point is, FedEx came out with numbers which weren't the best. I think the stock is down and out in post-market trading. Uh, and you could argue that in some fashion, logistics players have a bit of a early warning indicators or early indicators of anything good or bad, right? Because it kind of shows in the way shipments and the movement is happening. So from an Indian perspective, by the way, the festive season and how the sales chip out will be a factor because that will give an indication of what the consumer sentiment is. FedEx is of course talking about how he's seen around the world and largely around the world. You could argue that there could be these things. So let's wait and watch how this shapes up. U.S. markets in a day of trading, which was again weak, were down in the session. The other indicators are okay. I mean, I do, the yields I think didn't really dramatically move up or anything from the levels that they were at. So 3.45, which is fine. Dollar index just out there. Risk assets came off. Bitcoin came off. Ethereum is a different kettle of fish, but that's for Bitcoin aficionados. I'm not getting into that. But yeah, I mean, the risk assets by and large were okay, were down. Indian stock markets as well, by the way, declined for the second in a trot, right? Losses in for IT, pharma, real estate. So there has been a bit of a corrective move that we've seen. So what's the trade setup therefore for the day? Now, for 2 days on a trot, there's a bit of a cool-off move in India as well. Small caps have been resilient thus far, but who knows? There could be a downtick because yesterday they breached the 200-day moving average. So one of the notes that I was reading mentioned how this could lead to a 2-3 days of a corrective move or 200-300 points of a corrective move or something like that. But mind you, small caps have been resilient thus far as the index. There could be a bit of a downtick because there's some key technical level breach. IT continues to grind lower. If it starts off lower today, then it actually touches in and around a key support level, and it'll be really interesting to see if it actually breaches that and goes down further, because then there could be some more downside that open up. So watch out for that. Now, these were two technical pieces that I learned by reading a few notes early morning. Among stocks that actually saw a lot of buying interest, we've been talking about themes which are seeing buying interest. Tire stocks and power stocks, they have seen strong buying, and it'll be interesting to see if there is a continuation of that in the session today. Yesterday, for example, Torrent Power, NTPC, a bunch of those stocks were active, and every tire stock worth its salt was actually doing well. Apollo Tyres in particular, but the others too did well. So therefore, tire and power, watch out for them from a buying perspective. What about stocks to watch in the session today? We've come quickly to that because net, there has been, sorry, we haven't marked the SGX Nifty, have we? No, we haven't. So maybe just bring up the SGX Nifty once, just to show how we'll start off, about 100 odd points lower. From that perspective, considering it's a weekend as well, when the world market's not really gung-ho, maybe this is how we kind of start off. In light of that, it'll be interesting to see what some of the stock movers are likely to do. Remember, a lot of stocks have a positive move likelihood attached to them, but be mindful of the markets. So the first stock, Patanjali, and actually I'm speaking about Ambuja in the same breath as well. We both of them the same plate, but Patanjali is going to brief the press about 5 new IPOs in the next 5 years of 5 of the group companies. So it will be important today. Ambuja, there is a board meet for the fundraising today, and this will have a bearing. Now, there are some people who are talking about these queries on social media as well. So I want to tell you, the pricing will be a factor of a SEBI-derived formula. It cannot be anything else. So be mindful, because the stock has been on a bit of an uptrend. The 2-week average, I believe that is the formula, will obviously be lower than the current price. So just be mindful of that. That the fundraising, if it's a preferential issue, that is, if it's a rights issue, then the rights issue pricing again is a is a formula which could be lower, but the preferential issue too, I reckon, would probably be a factor of a formula. So be mindful of that for Ambuja as well. The point I'm trying to make is the rights issue or the preferential issue price will not be a determinant of the pricing. It will be maybe the quantum, maybe the market's belief of what Ambuja will do with it, and all of that would be a factor. Next week we'll do a very interesting conversation on cement because it's such a buzzing pocket. So on Thursday or Friday we'll do a conversation with one of somebody who's very deeply entrenched in the cement space. So that's something to be watched out for. Then the rebalancing effective today for a bunch of indices. On a Sensex basis, Kotak could see an inflow of $43 million. SBI could see an outflow of 12 million. It won't even move the needle on SBI. And by the way, some of these are already factored into my mind, but I'm still bringing this to you. So, okay, Sensex we've already seen. Now, let's stay with this plate. The FTSE Global Equity Index, Indian hotels, an inflow of $49.4 million, likely. Of course, these are all as per Edelweiss alternative research, of course, but this Indian hotels could see this kind of an inflow. CG Power, 31 million, is pretty large too. And Schaeffler, an inflow of 28 million is pretty large, especially because some of these stocks are not as liquid, especially Schaeffler. So keep in mind. Now, and then there is Wisdom Tree Earnings India Index, wherein Tata Steel could see an inflow of $41.2 million. The thing to keep in mind is that unlike what happens, in MSCI, wherein largely you see an impact coming in only in the last 30 minutes of trade, typically, and therefore that impact may be bunched up. In the case of FTSE Global Index, for example, it's spread out throughout the day. So watch out for each of these. If some of these reactions may have already happened, as in the case of Indian hotels, for example, but there could be activity in some of the others, wherein a $28 million inflow for Schaeffler, $31 million inflow for CG Power, all of that could be pretty important. There are a bunch of other stocks. Of course, I brought the ones which I thought were the most important. Vedanta, and somehow the announcements that come in tend to bring out negative surprise a lot of times. This time is no different. There's a U-turn, wherein Vedanta has said that the proposed semiconductor business will be undertaken by its ultimate holding company, Vulcan Investments. All through, it was believed that there was no clarification, maybe. So maybe wrongly believed, whatever the case may be, that the announcements were done from a perspective of Vedanta, but it's not within the listed entity Vedanta, but within Vulcan Investments. I would believe that they should bring about a bit of a downtick in the stock. Let's wait and watch. Yesterday there was significant derivative action, by the way, in Vedanta. So pretty interesting there. MTAR Technologies, they've received orders worth 540 crores in clean energy segment, including civil nuclear plant. Amara Raja, the High Court of Andhra Pradesh has extended the interim suspension order of the closure orders by Andhra Pradesh Pollution Board. So he was sigh of relief, Amara Raja shareholders. There could be some positivity there. There is a note from Nomura on AI engineering. They will buy with the target price of 2795. It's trading at about 23 times FY24 EPS. They say that the moderating costs moderating cost trends suggest that EBITDA levels can sustain at strong levels in the near term. The significant dips in ferrochrome and logistic cost as well for AI engineering, and that should aid. They of course believe that eventually realizations will moderate as the benefits of the lower commodities are gradually passed on. But for the near term, margins will sustain, and that should be a positive. Maybe AI engineering also has a chance of reacting positively. Don't know, but it's an interesting note, of course. Lastly, what stood out for me is this term called quiet quitters. It says those who fulfill workplace duties but are psychologically detached from their work. I hear about a lot of people who are quiet quitters, I must say. But it's an interesting. I didn't know that there was a formal term for this, so this is a bit of a learning for me. Nevertheless, from a market's perspective, watch out for all those rebalancing-led moves. Watch out for Vedanta, a U-turn. Watch out for Patanjali, and that could be an interesting one to monitor in the session today. Could be a big buzzer or a newsmaker today. If not a buzzer, at least a newsmaker, but should be interesting there. Ambuja could be interesting as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a safe day ahead, and have a great weekend, most importantly.